Hurricane Kirk, a long-range European threat this week. After becoming the most powerful storm of the Atlantic hurricane season so far, and that's saying something with Helene last week, Kirk is now weakening a little bit gradually as it curves towards the north and then northeastwards in the open Atlantic. Whilst it won't be directly affecting the western part of the Atlantic, there will be some strong surfs and rip currents for the whole region there from this Category 3 hurricane. Currently 120 miles per hour and a pressure of 949 millibars estimated, moving nearly due north at 15 miles per hour as of 2 p.m. Azores time this October 5th. Well, the storm is going to gradually curve towards the northeast and possibly already started doing so looking at that satellite imagery, but its current position 27 degrees north exactly and 50.2 degrees west. Makes it a Category 3, those wind speeds and pressure there on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale with up to 190 nautical mile wind field there in the northeastern quadrant. It is currently 2,222 kilometers from Flores in the Azores, 2579 from the Azores' largest settlement, Ponta Delgada, 4010 from Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, 4423 from Cork in Ireland, and 4960 from London. Well, the storm is over very sparse areas of the Atlantic right now, as mentioned, but it will be picking up pace. So even though those distances seem very high at this time, it will be closing in, possibly surprisingly quick. So as alluded to, swells and rip currents likely across the western shores of the Atlantic, the Caribbean, including the US and Canadian East Coast during the course of the next couple of days. If you remember Lorenzo back in 2019, this storm is pretty similar in terms of its strength, and that caused some issues there as well along the US East Coast, so definitely watch out for it. And of course strong winds possible later this week in the Azores and in Western Europe from Kirk's extratropical remnants by that point. So here's the complexion of the wind field and our expected track over the next few days as we enter the new week. There it is, drifting off towards the northeast. It won't affect the Azores directly and then later on turns post-tropical. At the moment, it looks like it might end up going through the English Channel and into the North Sea and eventually arrive in Norway by the end of the week. By that point, it may be stalling around as well, still with strong winds there too, and quite a large system indeed by that point too. Well, there it is right now, decent agreement of the wind speed, ADT estimates there around what we're going with 120 miles per hour. National Hurricane Center's last advisory was a few hours ago now, and that was 125. I expect they'll probably run with 120 as well at the next update, which is coming up pretty soon after this broadcast. Obviously, we're still watching out for Hurricane Leslie and another area of interest in the Gulf of Mexico, which looks like it could become another Florida impact. Well, there's Kirk right now, the National Hurricane Center's cone. There's no watches or warnings in effect, and they expect it will turn post-tropical just as it loses hurricane status, probably on Monday evening. And then it will move on towards the European region, and quite rare to see some of those locations implicated in National Hurricane Center cone, even Western Germany there. Well, this is the GFS model over the next few days, another low pressure system to the west of Kirk, but look how large it is, takes up the whole picture, and then it moves off towards the northeast, getting towards the outer edge of the globe there. We'll take a proper look at it again in just a second. Another system forming down there in the Atlantic as well. I'm not sure if that was Leslie, but let's take a closer look at Kirk's impacts here. The Azores probably getting a glancing blow, the westernmost islands getting maybe some strong tropical storm force winds, maybe even hurricane force, the other islands getting maybe up to 50 miles per hour. Then it swings into Europe there, still has some strong winds in there as well, pushing close to hurricane force. And then this is the simulated radar for the next few days as well. Look at the northern side especially, has a lot of power and momentum there in terms of the rainfall potential, which is obviously not good news for the UK, because there's been some flooding issues there recently in southern England, and so more of that may well be on the way. Take a look at the southern side for the Azores. It will be the dry side of the storm, and you can see there very little rainfall actually at all as the storm passes by. Of course, the track of the storm is still very much up in the air. It could make landfall in central France even still, so the northern coast Brittany and Normandy could also get really heavy rainfall. Taking a look at the rainfall expectations over the next 7 days, as it stands right now then, of course, as Kirk becomes extratropical, the rainfall distribution will get less powerful, obviously, as it loses some of its heat energy, and then eventually when it reaches Europe. Look at the rainfall amounts in the Azores, currently indicating less than an inch. In Portugal, though, and northern Spain there, parts of that region getting up to 6 inches of rainfall, and over southern England possibly getting up towards 5 inches, western France getting towards 4 inches. Guideline there for millimeters, 4 inches is 100 millimeters. And this is a decent view on just how those temperatures start to decline as the storm moves off towards the north and then the northeast. At the moment, it's still hovering at around 27 degrees Celsius, if not a little bit higher on the sea surface temperatures. And then once it moves up towards the Azores, it will still be around 21, 22 degrees. And then once it reaches Western Europe, those temperatures drop to only around 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, and even lower, of course, in the North Sea later on. But certainly it will still have a powerful core and a very broad core by the time it arrives in Europe midweek. It looks like it will definitely happen. Big question is exactly where we'll get the impacts and how strong and how much rain will fall in some of these places too. Looking at satellite imagery then, it's still looking quite decent as we look at it here. It's still nowhere near obviously what it did the other day, but still has a decent core, an eye wall there as well. A little break in it earlier, but it actually looks like it's consolidating again a little bit on those latest frames. The dry air slot on that western side, that's pretty clear to see. So that's going to certainly restrict the storm's strengthening if it does strengthen again at all. There may still be a small window, but in general we are looking at a weakening trend. But it will still be a hurricane for a fair while longer yet. It isn't really impacting any land areas this time, but you look at the water vapor, its influence is pretty massive away from its central core as we watch that imagery, and the central core there producing only a modest amount of high cloud tops with extremely heavy rain within that, and of course those strongest winds. This is NOAA star imagery as we watch the storm's movement there, generally moving almost due north now, and it looks like that turn towards the east or northeast will happen fairly soon. Nice visible imagery once again here, showing the storm rotating. This is the Azores imagery as well. Cloud tops well into the -70s. Not a full ring around the storm though. That's a sign that it's not quite as strong as it was. This is how it looked earlier, a couple of days ago when it made a run towards Category 5 status. We gave it a peak of 155 miles per hour because it had a beautiful looking eye there, well into the teens I believe in temperature, and a red ring all around it. We'll have more updates as the storm progresses.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.